Now that we have a final launch date for Chaos Zero Nightmare being the 22nd of October, meaning it's only around a month away, I thought why not combine that with my insights, or I guess you could say my 60-hour plus review of the maxed out closed beta, to give you a bit of an idea of what you're getting yourself into and how the game works in general. And obviously we are going to be covering the game more, moving towards the launch date, and then especially once the game launches, from beginner guides to tier lists to mistakes to avoid, and every single game mechanic and character explained in detail. That's pretty much what you can look forward to, so enjoy. It's WG, and this is the CZ Unlimited playtest. We have completely maxed out everything possible, so I can give you the most comprehensive review of what this game is all about, how does it work, is it worth playing, everything like that. So let's get straight into it without further ado. We've reached level 30, which is around pretty much the max level you can get, and with that we've also unlocked the hardest content currently possible. But let's start at the beginning. Let's start with your units. So these units are called Combatants. Overall there's a couple of these in total, currently for that playtest 23. But let's just talk about what these combatants are all about. So first off, you have your class and then your faction. So you have the 5 different attributes, or I guess factions you could say: the passion, void, instinct, order, and justice. So there's a weakness system. If a unit is weak to passion, then passion is going to deal more damage. And that's pretty much all of it. And then you also have classes. You have vanguards, which are your tanks, but there really aren't as many tanks in here, because every unit that is a vanguard can also deal damage, which I find quite interesting. Then you have your strikers, which are like your warriors, your like just close combat units. You have rangers, who are just units that are particularly good, I guess, at using weapons specifically, or ranged. Then you have hunters, who hunters are like kind of a mix between a ranger and a striker, because they use various ways to attack. Then you have psionics, who are really good at like building up to big bursts of damage. And then controllers are kind of like your support slash healers slash buffers, right? Those are pretty much controllers. Then let's come to the core of how units work. You pull a unit, and then that unit is going to have 4 starting cards and 4 unique cards. Starting cards refer to the fact that you have a roguelike system in this game, and if you start into a fight without a build, we'll get into that further, you then only start with these starting cards, and you have to earn yourself these unique cards. The way you earn them is by playing fights. The more fights you play in the roguelike mode, the more epiphanies you're going to have, which are just like your character has an idea and he learns a new skill, and then you can learn any of these unique card skills. On top of all of that, also, the 4th skill out of the starting cards, as well as the first 3 unique cards, all have a way to be further epiphany, to be further upgraded. So once you have all the skills, or once you get an epiphany for a certain skill, you'll then be able to choose between 5 different versions to further personalize and further upgrade your character and make your builds work. So that means you then have in total 3 standard cards for every character, which are the first 3, then 5 skills, so the, let's say, rapid fire, stealth round, seize the opportunity, dance of the demon, and deadly rounds. And out of those you have 20 different cards for every one of those skills. So you have 5 here, and then 5 here, here, and at the top. The deadly rounds is what you could call like a character's dedicated card. It's a card that is linked to a unit's strength, and also it's unupgradable, because the way you upgrade it is by getting the unit for the second time. So once you get a unit for the second time, an additional effect gets added to that purple card. So you can increase the 4 cards by just playing the roguelike mode, getting epiphanies, but upgrading the purple card only works through copies. So there is a copy system in here. Overall, maxing out a unit is going to be 7 copies, and these obviously give various buffs. They do help and synergize well with the character. Just so we have it out of the way, there's also a potential system, which are just stat buffs, like for example your basic cards do more damage, neutral cards, which we get to later also, and then unique cards being the cards you get with epiphanies, as well as this is actually quite nice, and that's a basic card upgrade. So that just adds an extra effect to your basic cards, which has to be kept in mind if you want to judge how strong a character is, because these are quite important in synergizing with the whole kit. But that then also brings us to gear. How do you gear these units? How do you make them stronger? Is there like a gear dungeon? Do you farm these? And the answer is not really. This gear system is, as far as I can tell, unique to anything you've ever seen. And that is, you gear characters by playing the roguelike game mode. So the way that works is you're going to go in with your fresh character, with your full team, and you're only going to have the starting cards. And then throughout the run, you're going to be able to obtain different pieces of gear. These different pieces of gear will have different effects. And then also, furthermore, you'll be able to obtain these epiphanies. Like, for example, here, this is one of our runs where we only had 8 cards. During this run, we have 9. Here we only had 5. So you can, for example, take cards out, you can add cards in, you can epiphany cards in different ways. Sometimes you might learn a skill, in another run you might not learn it. And then just for that extra flavor, there also is something called epiphanies from the divine. So the way that works is when you get an epiphany for a card with the 5 additional options, you have a small chance that a divine entity, either a demon or a god or some type of mythical being, supports you and upgrades one of your upgrades further. So you see it kind of in this symbol. This symbol is a divine symbol, whereas here I guess we have 2 divines. So this is a normal epiphany, this I guess 4-star, whereas these are divine interventions, I guess you could call them, and they add an additional effect. Though these effects aren't specific to a character, but more of out of a general pool, you're going to get something assigned. Like, for example, here, agony being a debuff, or something more standard like allowing you to draw an additional card. So while divine epiphanies can add furthermore to a character's power, normal epiphanies are what truly makes them work together well as a build. And the important part here is, that is how you build your characters for content. That is how you build your characters. And if you look at this, we currently have, I don't know, 20 builds on this character that we could all play, that are all unique in its own way, that we've all farmed by ourselves. And you can infinitely build characters trying to chase that perfect combination of cards to make the strongest character possible. And then there's, for example, the simulation game mode. So the simulation game mode, or any other game mode that at the bottom right says use save data, you can then take your finished build from a full run and use this in this piece of content. So you can farm for as long as it takes, build your dream units, put them into a team, and then use them to beat different dedicated content. Like, for example, right here we have these 3 units, and I could choose any of these builds that I've built myself, I've earned myself, with every gear, with every card upgrade, to just then take on this piece of content. So let's more specifically have a look at how does this roguelike thing even look like. So here we're going to go into I guess you could say, it's called a small planet, but overall, as far as I can tell, these planets just get bigger and bigger, longer and longer. The longer a fight, the longer a stage, the more time you have to further dedicate and craft and perfect your build to then end up with, I guess you could say, godlike versions. So you go into a run, and then obviously the word roguelike should tell you something, but for those of you that don't, it's going to be a choose your own path through different stages adventure. So you have, for example, normal stages, you have mystery stages where events happen that can range from giving you an equipment piece to killing you outright. You have rest places where you can just rest and recover. You have shops, you have elite encounters, you have resting stations that just give you free gear, and then at the end of this all, you obviously have a boss. But the interesting part here as well is, the further you go in level, the more difficult the content, you can then, this is what is currently called the outerior or the exterior. this is the first boss. And if you build a team that can beat this first boss, you are allowed to go further into the chaos, going into the interior. The interior is going to be exactly this again. So you won't start off of zero. You start off with the build you just beat the boss with, and then be able to go to another whole row of fights to then fight a final end boss at the end of it all. And when you beat that guy, you've beaten the planet, you've destroyed the chaos, and you've successfully completed your run, and then you can save your builds and use these builds wherever you want. So I think it's a very, very unique way to approach gearing, and it's something that it pretty much offers endless replayability. Now, on the note of endlessness, let's talk about the endless debacle, and there is partners. These partners are what in other games would be your weapons. So think Genshin and then a character-specific weapon, whereas these ones are going to be class-specific partners. So, for example, this partner only works on hunters, and then this partner has a certain effect that then synergizes with your character, and then also have a ego skill, so you can then use an additional ult. So a character brings a passive and an ult, and these partners are all then obviously part of the gacha system, where the gacha system, let's just briefly go over the basics of how it works. So overall, you have a 1% chance to hit a 5-star, and if you look at it with the 70 pity, it's like a 2.14% chance every time you summon. Important to note is you have a 1% chance for the summon 1 to 57, and from 58 every summon you do is 4.5% higher. So while the 70 is a guarantee, you're never really going to get the 70, you're going to get your 5-star anywhere from like 58 to 66 most of the time. Rates are equal for every character, and what's been causing a bit of controversy, I guess you could say, is the fact that the dedicated character banners that they're going to introduce outside of the standard banner are going to have your traditional 50-50 Genshin Honkai Star Rail-like system. So that then brings us to partners. You can obtain 4-star partners as off-banner pulls during your standard banner or during the premium banners, but you have to specifically summon for partners outside. So it's not going to be like Epic 7 where you can summon both the unit and their weapon at the same time. No, you have to specifically go for a character's weapon, which then will again also have a 50-50 system attached to it. During the limited playtest, there was no premium banner to attempt it, but there is already the premium currency. You can kind of see it here, the signal amplification anchor in blue is the premium one, whereas the rescue anchor is the standard one. Overall, when the game then does finally release, it's going to be the same. Do not use your premium currency on the standard banner, rather just use the summons given to you by the game. So now that we kind of have like the framework of this, let's just briefly go through, I guess, the rest of the game modes to give you a bit more of an idea. So you obviously have a story. Currently for the playtest, it only goes to chapter 1, but there is already mentions of up to chapter 6 in the game itself right here. So expect that the story goes at minimum to like chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7. And then there's also these battle missions, which are challenges you have to take on. Here's again the save data symbol, this brain, meaning that you can farm your builds by playing chaos runs to then take on these challenges right here. And that's also how you promote yourself. So the promotion system is pretty simple. You're going to start out on level 10 and you're going to be a beginner captain, meaning that the maximum level of your units is going to be 10 first. Then you beat the beginner trial, and then your maximum level is going to be 20. Then you beat the intermediate trial, and then your maximum level is going to be 30, going up all the way to 60. So you won't be able to upgrade someone to 60 straight away. You first have to unlock that through account progression, and the way you do that is by finishing these growth guide quests that then help you get towards unlocking these conditions. Like, for example, for the second battle mission, you had to have, or for the promotion mission, you had to have been level 20. So once you reach level 10, you can do the first promotion. You reach level 20, you can do the second promotion. Reach level 30, you can do the third promotion. So on and so forth. The last two things to talk about are going to be the combat system, just a bit of combat in general, and then the, I guess, hub, as in Ark City, but that one's going to be a bit minor. So let's just go into a fight and have a look at the basics of how this all works, just so you have a, I guess, good example, a good idea. So let's move myself over here so I don't hide too much. Let's go over here. So what we have here on the left side is your ego meter, or your ego points. You use these ego points to trigger either character or partner specific ultimates. Then you have your action points in the middle, which means how many abilities you can use in a turn. You can obviously increase both ego and action points through various ways. And then you have your cards. Top left is cost of card, and then down in the middle are obviously the effect. So for example, Outbreak of War cards are cards that you're going to have at the beginning of the battle no matter what. And then there is different types of cards. So you have an attack card, which is just straightforward. It's a card that does damage, right? Then you have upgrade cards. Upgrade cards are cards that turn into a passive effect. Like for example here, the ability to gain a shield every time we, or to gain a counter every time we gain a shield. And then we can just do our attack right here. Shield wise, enemies are very varied. So in a way, enemies are always, like you could say, unique to each other, but they're also not overwhelmingly crazy. So for example, below these enemies you can see under the infinity sign, that's their action points. So if I use a card, you see how this action point goes down to 3. That means before my turn actually ends, enemies could attack early and trigger the effect that is below them. To find out what an enemy wants to do, you either look at the symbol, which tells you that these two guys are going to do something defensive, whereas the front two guys are going to do something offensive. Or you can then furthermore click on the enemies, which is specifically going to tell you how much damage the attack is going to do, and also what the effect of the attack is. So you can have a look at that. And that is also usually it. It's anywhere between like 1 to 3 lines at most to what enemies do. So while there might be varied enemy types, it's not overwhelming to the point that an enemy has like a gazillion skills. Though do keep in mind that every round enemies can do something different. Like for example how these units are going to use their crush skill with the damage that we talked about or had a look at. And then there's also enemies that then for example swap from an attack skill to a stun skill to a debuff skill and the like. On the note of skills, you also have skill cards. Skill cards are cards that have an effect, but they don't attack. So you just use them, and yeah, right. It's just not an attack card. So these are like the 3 main cards: skill cards, attack cards, and then upgrade cards, which then again turned into something of a passive. Outside of that, you have very well done UI when it comes to seeing which kind of buffs actually do affect you at the moment. You can at any time just click here in the top left to have a look at your buffs. You can check out your decks, especially useful during mid runs, or you can check out your combatants where you can see your character's full stats. You can have a look at the character's complete stats as of this moment, the stress level as well, and then also your partners, the fate, which usually only applies during a chaos run. And then let's talk about the meter below enemies. So if we attack this enemy, not only do we deal damage to the HP bar at the top, but we also do damage to the meter below, and that is the tenacity meter. The tenacity meter, when that one goes to 0, it allows us to inflict not a stun, but a break state. That break state is something that gets interacted by various cards in various ways, but overall what it does is it just gives you ego meter, and it also gives you action points. So these points down here, if we were to break this unit, we would gain an additional point, meaning that overall we would be able to use more cards. There's obviously a lot to this, a lot of variance to this, with having different units that then have different effects, having different cards that do different things, and the graveyard, and then the exhaust, but that is all a bit too specific to take on right here. But if you wanted to know, for example, exhaust means when you use it, rather than it going into the graveyard and then back into your deck, it goes into this second pile right here. These exhausted cards are now not going to be obtainable anymore. And yeah, so that is, I guess, the basics of the combat system. So for the last one, let's let's take it a little bit more chill and have a look at Ark City, which is kind of like your hub. So Ark City has this event where you need to review policies. You want to keep certain stat thresholds that you can do with these claimable tasks. You also have then the Starshine Dinner, which is, yeah, it's just a place where you can buy yourself food and prepare for these void runs, or I guess chaos runs. What that means is you can buy yourself a portion of food, get yourself a buff for the next 2 chaos runs to further increase your chances of successfully beating said run. Then you have the Garden Cafe, which is just free stamina. This stamina is only used in a simulation mode, which gives you the certain different I guess resources, whereas Chaos itself does not take any stamina, meaning you can infinitely play it. Then we have the bosses. Bosses can only be done 3 times per week, and potential materials to upgrade potential, partner to upgrade partners, combatants to upgrade combatants, and then the standard items like your currency, your XP for combatants and XP for partners. With the memory fragments, it's not live, the feature right now, but due to certain clues from like the tip system and the way things are worded, this should be a further way to increase your combatant's power by giving a combatant a memory fragment that matches the combatant, that is then going to have additional stats that will most likely be along the lines of crit chance, crit damage, weakness damage, ego recovery, passion damage, justice damage, and the like. So extra stats right here, but that is all a bit in the open left still because it's not unlocked during this limited playtest. So yeah, Ark City remainder would then be the Epion Center, where you can recover from mental breakdown, which is a whole different thing that we don't really need to cover yet. You have a research tree, which just gives you overall more bonuses. And then you have various different shops with various different currencies that do various different things, as you're used to buy from gachas, like the ability to buy yourself partners. So if you do enough summons on the standard banner, you will be able to just buy yourself a partner. You don't have to actually summon on a partner banner to get them. You then also have the Traveler Shop, which is your, I guess, 3-star pull currency, which you can use right here, whereas this one is the currency you gain for pulling a 5-star or 4-star in 8 and 40 currency value respectively. So every tempo you're guaranteed at minimum 8 currency, going up to anywhere from like 40 if you pull 5 4-stars in a single pull. Zeronium, honestly, it doesn't exist yet, the Zero system, so I can't really tell you anything about it. And then you have the Prism module, which is the fashion pulse. So you might have seen this third banner already. What this does is if you go in here and you pull anything 4-star or above, you get the ability to cosmetically enhance cards for certain characters. And the way that looks like is we have a character who's a good example because we have a lot of, we pulled a lot for them, just obviously randomly. And that is these cards will then become animated. So if you go to the restore card motion, you'll be able to select these cards, and then they change from static images to kind of this rainbow sheen with animations and I guess animations and coloring and movement. So that is what you could call skins, and then obviously on top of that they might just introduce skins separately as well. Who knows, but that is one way to personalize your characters. Would I recommend summoning on that banner? No, but you are getting that currency for you anyway through various quests and various logs. Like, for example, right here, 4 fashion pulls, just because, right? Just because. And yeah, I think that concludes most of what you can expect or see from the beta. There's obviously a gazillion characters with a gazillion different ways to build teams, but it's a pretty good game. Like, I probably invested anywhere from like 60, no, okay, 60 is a bit too much, but yeah, anywhere from like 40 to, yeah, maybe even 60 hours. I've played this a whole lot, and it is very, very enjoyable. Especially, you can play this endlessly. Like, you could do 100,000 runs of chaos and not one run is going to be the same. And I can't wait to further progress, further increase my characters. And something that did surprise me is 4-star characters are damn strong. There are some really, really strong 4-stars that can compete with 5-stars, absolutely, especially, or I guess around the level 30 threshold. And yeah, it's the first game where I really like every single character and what they do. It's to the point where I couldn't even really tell you who's the strongest, who's the best. Because they all just have something unique to them that can be useful. They all can deal damage. They all can like support your team. It's a pretty good look, like a really good look to this. And I can't wait for the official release.